people. So today's podcast is with a dear friend and an ex-coworker, Jacques Lecour. And no, he's not really French. He is actually very American who loves hunting and has some very different opinions than myself. In this podcast, I try and understand those different points of views. I really hope you enjoy this one. You also do look like if you had a longer beard, you would look like Santa Claus, I think. Not like
I'm gonna get there. As soon as this goes white, it's gonna go longer. So right now I'm in like a mid-30s Kris Kringle look. So a couple more years, I'll get there.
And your kids would always believe in Santa Claus.
Yeah, I mean they might as well. I am pretty much. So it's funny. Every year I wait till they go to bed and stuff, and I write a letter from Santa Claus on like official like North Pole cover letter. So I make my own individual border and sign it as Santa Claus and everything else. Yeah. So
wow,
every year they get a letter from Santa.
How old is your oldest?
So my oldest is 12, and then I've got the 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
So your oldest hasn't caught on to it at all?
Oh yeah, he knows. I mean, he knows Santa, but he's really good about just going along with it. Just really cool about it and feeding into it a little bit. And we do the whole the elf on the shelf thing.
What is that?
It's a recent craze, right? Where it comes with a book and you have this little plush elf. And you get to name the elf whatever it is, and it's Santa's way of seeing if all the boys and girls are being naughty or nice. So the way the book goes is Santa sends these elves out and they come to life at night and they watch the kids and see if the kids are being naughty or nice. And then every night they report to Santa Claus and then they come back the next day. And so the trick is you read the kids the story, they name the elf, and then every day as a parent, you now have the chore to move the elf someplace else. So he came to life at night and now he's someplace else. Some kind of predicament, some kind of like position, whatever.
That's kind of a good way to manipulate your kids into doing the right things.
I mean, it's either that or a belt, so whatever.
So true.
As it just spanked them, that's another form of manipulation.
Are you from India? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
There was this long time ago, I met this French guy in San Francisco, and I had just returned from Puerto Rico where an American couple was talking about how disturbed they were with the Christmas celebrations in Belgium because they found it really obnoxious and racist. For example, the Santa was drunk out of his mind and he was just throwing candy like viciously at people, and he's like, I got hurt on my head. And then there were these little people, some people, I don't know how to describe them, but they were smaller, dark people, and
Dwarves?
were his helpers or something, and they found it very racist. So then I told this Parisian guy what was his view on that, and he's like, it's not racism. An American would think that. He said that from our perspective, it is in our mythology that those little people are pygmies and they are playing a part, and and there is nothing racist about it. So
well, I mean, yeah, it comes back to the intent. You and I had talked about this, like the intent of a joke, right? And how some people get so offended now over a joke, and it's like, it's a joke. It's not meant to be taken serious. It's actually meant to be taken in its most purest way, very lighthearted in what it is. They're pygmies. They're Santa's helpers, and if you go looking for the racism and everything, you're gonna find it, but it's just gonna ruin your day. Like, why? I have a fascination. I want to go, and I want to go to the Krampus festival. So I'm a big fan of Krampus.
In German, give some context to my sister.
Yeah, so Krampus is the anti-Santa. So Krampus is the Christmas demon that comes and spanks all the naughty children. And he's got shackles and hooves and big horns, and he's a big goat demon, and he's dressed in a Santa Claus suit, and he spanks all the naughty children. And I'm all for Krampus. Love him. It's funny. So this year I went to a Halloween store, and they had an 8-foot statue live action of Krampus in the Halloween store. And I wanted to go back and buy it at the end because everything's like 75% off, and then put it up on my porch for Christmas.
Why didn't you do it?
My wife vetoed me. She's like, absolutely
not. That's the story with every couple. Like, anytime a guy wants to do something outrageous, like, no.
What? I was like, why are you ruining my fun? I love Krampus. So I do have a Krampus shirt, and it's got Krampus with his tongue hanging out and everything, and he's spanking a little boy over his knee. It's my favorite Christmas shirt.
Let me show Krampus.
Yeah.
Because after you mentioned it to me, I looked it up, and I was like, this is awesome. It's so beautiful. It's called Krampus.
What? He gives you the cramps? Ooh.
Matter of fact, this is, let me see if I can pull it up. This is the exact shirt I have. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to share screens real quick. Can I share screens on this?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. This is the exact shirt I have.
Oh.
You should.
I mean, it totally looks like Krampus is a pedophile, but whatever.
Oh my! I didn't even think about that.
Oh God.
Oh. Yeah, but I mean, look at those eyes. They're pretty hungry.
Well, it looks like he wants to eat them.
I don't know. It looks like he's wanting to toss his salad.
Maybe next year during Christmas, or maybe this year. What year is it? 2021. So maybe this year during Christmas, you can, rather than dressing up as Santa, you can dress up as Krampus.
But what about the wife?
What I need to do.
What would you do of the wife?
What's that?
What would you do of the wife?
If she's lucky, she might get some spankings.
Wow, lucky her.
I told you, he has no filter.
She might go out and do a couple naughty things anyways. She might like that tongue. I don't know.
Rather than wearing a t-shirt, you should dress up as a half goat man. And
I got the little beard. I got the beard going on. I just need some horns,
I think it would suit you.
Definitely pull it off. So yeah, I totally get it. I saw a video on Facebook. I shared it to my page. It was I forget the name of the guy, but he just makes fun of people all the time. And this episode was woke, how to be a woke white person.
Yes, Awaken with JP.
That's it.
Yes,
absolutely loved it. It was hilarious. He's like, even though people aren't racist and they don't intend to be racist, doesn't mean that you can't point it out and call them racist. And so you share that story about Santa and the pygmies and things like that, and that's exactly it. Like, you take something that out of context, out of everything, and you're like, that's racist, and it's like, it's ignorance, really.
Yeah, and that's just one aspect to it, right? Like, I've seen one of my friends speak for immigrants, contradicting what I'm saying, like, because he thinks he knows better, because he has a major in international relations. He's like, I know better. And I'm like, do you know that you are talking to an immigrant? Like, what you think you know takes precedence over what I know or what other immigrants know.
Yeah, I mean, I have immigrant friends as well. And I always try to, when I speak of immigration laws and things like that, I try to phrase it how they put it to me. But it's never I know because I know immigration. Like, I don't know immigration. My last name's French, but that doesn't mean I came from France or Canada, you know? um, that drives me nuts that people do that.
Yeah, and like, why do you need to speak for someone else? Just speak for yourself, you know, because you don't know how someone else might feel. You
Well, and the situation changes from person to person too, right? I mean, so the experience my friends have had is different from the experiences you've had or
Right.
others have had. You know, it's funny. My sister posted some meme the other day, and she's like, a person who is raised in love will always know love, and therefore they'll be a loving person. And a person who is raised, you know, in corruptness or whatever like that is going to be a corrupt person. And I'm like, that's just kind of it's an ignorant thought, right? And I'll pull it back together. So like I told her, I typed us all out to her. I was like, the thing is we're we're all developed and influenced by nurture, but we internalize it a different way. Like a person who grows in love and knows only love, they don't know the ugliness of hate and ignorance. And so they may just take advantage of that love and be an ugly person versus a person who grows up in this kind of corrupt survival situation, knows that corrupt survival situation. So yes, they know how to manipulate people, but they also realize how wrong it is. And so they grow to be a more compassionate, loving person. We just don't know. And so with the immigration thing, you know, depending on how everybody's situation goes, depending on how they internalize it and their own struggles, is it impacts their views. Like I know Hispanic people who, you know, are here illegally of sorts, you know, they came here illegally and they hate other immigrants, you know, they're just like, I don't want any more immigrants. You know, they're going to take my jobs and this and that. Like, and they're just as bigoted towards other immigrants than just others. You know, it's funny. It's just funny how that whole process influences people and just the nurture around it.
And that's survival mode, right? In a way that you have compassion for other immigrants is in a way sort of a privileged position because you are in a non-threatened position. You're not fighting for staying where you are.
Yeah.
But I think that's not a general rule, right? People are.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, it depends with immigration. It also depends on how you came to be in a certain country. And I'll use the USA for our conversation, right? So how you came to the United States, right? Are you here on a school visa, a work visa? Did you go through all the proper paperwork, red tape, and channels, and you're actually a citizen now? Or are you here illegally? You know, like depending on which avenue you got here, you could definitely have some disdain for others. Like somebody who spent years and worked really hard and spent, you know, tons of money trying to become a citizen in this country would definitely harbor some resentment and disdain, I think, to somebody who just like hopped a border and came and is like, yes, I'm an American, you know? So, I mean, yeah, it just, yeah, that's all. Just the perspectives that people have and how they're affected by nurture is interesting.
Right.
So did you tell your friend just to shut his mouth? Because he knows nothing about the subject?
On it, but you know, for someone to understand and accept their mistake, they need to be a much developed personality. So I do know that now he understands it, but he just kept quiet and listened to it. He didn't even say, yes, I understand, I acknowledge it. He kept quiet and this, because I brought it up later on. I'm like, do you see? Because he was complaining about the same kind of stuff from someone else. He said, I said something, and there was this other white guy who got offended for someone else. He's like, this is racist. And I was thinking, you for that guy. I'm like, it's exactly like what you did. Do you remember this time? And he's like, and then he was quiet, but he didn't say, no, you're right, I acknowledge it or anything. He just It was just like,
Next time you just need to interrupt them and be like, excuse me, sir, your privilege is showing.
You were gonna say something, Benny?
I was saying that, you can hold a thought, you can have a belief that, okay, this is right or wrong, but then you should be open-minded towards, finding out what other people's perspectives are, or maybe there is more than what I feel is right. You should have that open-mindedness that, okay, till now I feel this is the right thing, but then you shouldn't be blocked towards accepting other people's perspectives or even giving a thought. That's when you build a stereotype. That's when you become, well, racist and all these things. That's why you become that, because you're not ready to open up to other people's thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that comes with some security as a human being. How secure are you as a person? If you are so insecure that acknowledging your own mistakes is too much for you, and then you self-validate it, you will, it's not really even about finding the truth, actually, for him, I feel. It's not about like, I want to figure it out. It's more like who is right and who is wrong. And I don't want to be wrong. Kind of like
Well,
that.
I mean, I think it's easier for people to compartmentalize right or wrong, right? It's just easy for people to say, your actions are right, your actions are wrong. This makes sense in my mind, and I'm good. The maturity and the reality is that right and wrong is so much deeper, right? Did the ends justify the means? I think I shared with you the Kurt Vonnegut's short story there, right?
Which one?
And
I remember.
what was it? Welcome to the Monkey House.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah,
my
so I mean, we look at like a scenario, like a person goes to the store and steals a loaf of bread or steals an apple or
Right.
something like that, right? It's stealing. We know it as kind of a wrong deed, right? You're not supposed to steal. But what are you stealing for? Are you hungry? Have you haven't ate in days? Do you not have any other place to go? You do not have an alternative? Is there some kind of mental state that you don't know? I mean, you just don't know the deeper understanding and meanings behind a person's actions. And until you really kind of take a moment to sit back and say, why are they really doing this? You can't just compartmentalize it and say right or wrong. Now, if they're stealing shit because they're an asshole, well, yeah, that's wrong. If they're just doing it just to do it, that's wrong. They're doing it because they're getting back at the system and fighting back at Big Brother and big organizations, and they feel they're doing their part by stealing something. I don't know. That's kind of wrong. I mean, there's better ways to go about doing that. But my point is, and to your point earlier, is you really just have to get down to really understanding the root cause on why a person is acting or doing what they are doing or saying what they're doing, in order you can just, before you just judge it and say yes or no, this is right or this is wrong.
So going against the system, since you talked about it, what do you feel about the GameStop situation?
I mean, in what aspect?
Like
There's so much to it.
so the retail investors getting back at just wanting to mess with the hedge fund investors and giving them a taste of what they feel is their own medicine.
Oh man, it's interesting, right? Because on one hand, and this is kind of where we are as a culture anyways, right? Or a nation, I guess the United States as a whole. This is kind of a smaller example, in my opinion, in my mind. But on one hand, you're like, yeah, stick it to the man. The people, the upper crust, so to speak, the percentage that is controlling everybody else, controlling the stock market, and really you're throwing the average person crumbs here and there and giving them hope that they're going to make $1 million, but we all know at the end of the day they're not, because it's controlled by a monster machine. And so you have this group of people that are like sticking it to them and like, F you, all right, we're gonna break this mold, we're gonna break your system. So on one hand, you're like, hooray, good job. But then if you start to think about it, you're like, all right, well, what's gonna happen to GameStop now? Right? So you've exploded their stocks, and now we're starting to see them fall rapidly. We're starting to see this crumble. So what happens now? And that's what gets interesting. I think if nothing happens to GameStop and they stay in business and everything's honky-dory, then okay, good. Your plot worked, your plan worked, and fantastic. However, if at the one of the outcomes of this is if GameStop goes bankrupt, if GameStop starts laying off and shutting down stores, well, what have you now done? You know, your whole point was to stick it to the upper crust and, you know, be a hero for the common man, the blue collar worker, right? But then you turn around and as a direct result, you've now got a percentage of them fired, right? Or a company is now bankrupt, and so people are losing their jobs over it.
Weren't they planning on, like, they were betting against its stocks rising, so they were already affecting it badly anyways, almost to the point of bankruptcy anyways.
Yeah.
Here GameStop at least got some hope.
Yeah, but we don't know what the end result is, right? Like I said, I mean, if everything normalizes and it goes back to, you know, their normal balance and GameStop runs as business as usual, then fantastic, your plan worked, right? But you said a key point, they are betting. And when you make a bet, when you make an educated bet, there's a high probability, yes, you're going to win, but there's also a chance that you're going to lose. So in this bet they made, there is a chance that things don't go back to normal, that things actually take a turn for the worse. And then everyday, ordinary, average people who are relying on a paycheck are now out of work.
Right.
You know, I mean, we see it with the COVID too. I mean, people are being laid off, people are not working. We have colleagues that we work with who their friends and family are having to shut down businesses and go under, you know, because of COVID regulations, because the government is saying, no, you can't work. No, you can't go back to do your job. You know, so whenever you control things like that, manipulate the system, if it works out, fantastic. But then there's the flip side there. If it doesn't work out and people are lost, I mean, what have you really done at the end of the day? You've lined your pockets. You've done the exact same thing that hedge fund managers and large corporations have done, and then stuffed it to the blue collar person, you know? So you're the same as the Wall Street sharks, the upper crust in that sense.
What do you feel is the solution in a thing like that? Like,
I don't think there's no easy fix, you know? I mean, there really isn't. I think you may look into how can we use this as an example, or how can we learn from it to make a more fair trade system? How do we learn from it and take away some of the insider trading practices, right? How do you educate people more to make smart decisions and things like that? I think there's a few different things you could do. I don't know if you can ultimately protect it, because no matter what you have, whatever process, policy, or anything you put in place, there's going to be a loophole you can expose, and there will be people who will expose it for whatever means.
I mean, that was the complaint. Like, they were saying that the hedge funds never talked about regulations before, you know, this bit them on the back. Now they're talking about regulations, so which was kind of interesting. And in terms of like the COVID thing, I feel like any decision the government makes, no, not everyone is ever going to be happy. And it's not about making people happy, but also like, what decision can you make?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's not really a right or wrong, and there's not a one size fits all that everybody's going to be happy with it, right? The reality is, this is why we have different political parties, is because we all put value on different political stances or stumps. You know, some people put value of their own individual freedoms above others. Some people put the environment as the top stump, like as their top thing. Some people put gun rights as their top thing. Like if you could think, like if you could poll people, right, and take the top 10 political things, let's say, gun rights, abortion, personal freedoms, taxes, environment, foreign relations, blah, 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 right? Take 10 and you say, rank these on what's most important to you, top to bottom, you're going to get all sorts of answers, right? You poll 100 people, you're going to get 100 different answers, but you'll start to see common themes in the top threes. I mean, we do this in our own jobs, right? We do these type of analysis when we start looking at like NPS and some other stuff. Like we see what people like most. And so to your point, we're not going to have a one size fits all, but love him, hate him, vote for him, didn't vote for him, whatever. Trump said something during the debates that actually resonated and made a ton of sense to me, in that the cure can't be worse than the problem. And if you ask me, that's where we are today, right? I care for people. I love people. I don't want to see people sick and dying. That's not what I want to see. However, if you told me, you say, hey, look, you have to kill off these 2 million people to save 10 million people, my mind says that makes sense. It's not the happiest outcome, but that makes sense. So we're at a stance where, for me anyways, you're shutting down businesses, you're shutting down travel. Where you are. I don't know if I'm allowed to say where you are, but where you live, and that state is locked down. So that's affecting businesses. That's affecting people's mental state. That's affecting people's just want to go outside, want to continue living to some degree. I mean, and those are real problems that is coming from this decision just to lock everything down.
Yeah, and you really believe that, right? Because we were discussing this once, and I said, well, what if it affects you or your family? And you were like,
Yeah.
then God willing, if it affects us, it affects us. But this is what I really believe.
Yeah. I was put in that situation. So my mom got COVID. I got COVID, right?
COVID?
What's that?
I didn't know you got COVID.
Yeah, I tested positive. I had COVID in November. Yeah. So I wasn't just throwing words out there. Like, I wasn't just bullshitting you like, oh, this is what I think. Like, yes, I got COVID. And my mom got COVID. She was in the hospital for 4 weeks and pretty close to dying. But my mom also has made some decisions. Like, she smoked for 50 some odd years, and like got double pneumonia, was very sick in the hospital. Like, they were close to intubating her. Fortunately, she's recovering. She's coming out. But through all that, it just solidified my stance in saying, you know what, like, I actually am okay, because I enjoy the fact that I can go out and I can go to the store. I can go out and my kids and I can run out and go places, like, that has a value to me. And that value to me is, pretty high up there, rather than just giving up my personal freedoms and locking myself in the house and, things like that.
So how did that experience solidify your, like, just actually experiencing it, you felt you understood your values? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know. It helped because we say things all the time, right? We have an idea on our opinion about how things are, and we say them. And then when we actually live through an occurrence, that helps reshape or reaffirm what we thought. The 3 Ds: we let it define, develop, or destroy us, right? And so what that does in going through COVID, for me anyways, helped more or less develop my train of thought. And thinking that me personally, I don't think locking down people, shutting down economies is actually better for our country and people as a whole.
Okay.
Now, others would differ. Some people might think, hey, if one life lost is horrible, and the value of that one life is
Not as
important. It's opening up business is not as important as losing one life, or something like that. And to each their own. They're entitled to their opinion. I just don't agree with that. But
No.
I'm more of a logical person. I'm like, kill 2 million people, save 50 million else. This is a math equation in my head. That's how my mind thinks about these things. And it just is what it is.
And
The same, I'm not going to get a COVID vaccine either.
why? You don't trust it?
I mean, I've already got COVID. I have antibodies. We know that the COVID flu, right? COVID-19 is evolving. So even the COVID vaccines they have now are slowly going to diminish in response to any evolved COVID that comes out. So yeah, you get a shot this year, and then when it evolves, you have to get another shot next year, and you have to get a shot year after that. So you're just getting shots after shots after shots. I personally don't get a flu shot because I'm like, good Lord takes me, he takes me. I don't care. I'd rather my body build up natural immunity. It's in antibodies to, protect itself and protect against the flu. And I'm willing to die for that. I also believe in a slippery slope in that if we are starting to get mandated now, when does that stop? If I start to have to, the only way I can take a flight or the only way I can work or the only way I can interact with people is to carry around a piece of paper proving I was vaccinated, where are we as a society? Like, is that where we're going? Because to me, and I know this is a stretch, right? This analogy here, but to a degree, I don't see any difference in holding up that vaccination paper than in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, Jewish people holding up a Star of David on their coats, proving who they are. A form of government control, and I do not want that at all, period. I think there's better ways to go about it. I think education is the root of all societal plagues and problems. Look, if you're sick, don't go out in public. Don't be an asshole to everybody else. If you know you're sick, don't go out in public. Don't go sneezing on people. Wear a mask if you so choose.
So you are for masks, or?
I am for. I personally don't like wearing a mask, right? But I'm also for an open economy and kind of free business and capitalism, in that if a business asks me to wear a mask to shop in their store, they're entitled to do so. It's their business. And if I want to shop in that store, I will wear a mask. And if it's that big of a deal, I won't shop in that store, period. I mean, that's capitalism.
That's the thing with you. Like, that's why I think you're so interesting, because you're a blend of like some folks I've met are either very left or very right, or it's just that there are some categories that they have assigned to themselves. And with you're a mixture of things, which is what I was telling my sister, that apart from these views, you're also like a meat-eating, animal-loving, spiritual dude, which doesn't go together in the quintessential terms. Like, you love to.
I mean, why not? I mean, it just means I think it means, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but when you meet people like that, and people are like that, I think it means that they've really spent a lot of time to try to understand different perspectives, different cultures, different ideas, and that they really go into things with open minds. And they might have some concrete, firm beliefs in things, but they also go in and they listen to other opinions. And again, use those opinions, use those words, use those conversations to define and develop themselves. I mean, the way I think now is not the same way I thought 10, 15 years ago, and it won't be the same way I'll think 10, 15 years from now. And that's okay. That's being an adult. That's maturing. The moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying.
Right. And no, these kind of views I actually came across for the first time when I went to Alaska. In Alaska, they really love animals, and they really believe that if I killed an animal, I should consume every part of it. So they don't let any, and they even like, I mean, they don't hunt just to kill, they hunt to eat. And when they do consume an animal, they pray to it, and they consume every part of the animal. Like it's a unique blend of um, because obviously they don't have vegetarian options, you know, in a way that is kind of a privilege we have in India, which is, you know, it's an agriculture, main occupation was always agriculture. So
Yeah.
we have all these amazing crops and stuff like that. But in Alaska, you don't have that, and they still love their animals. They believe in spirits of animals. They pray to animals, and they consume every piece, even if it's a bone. They make drums or they make something out of it. They don't let the animal go to waste at all, and
Right.
that's very respectable. And that's where I feel like I thought that was, I mean, that was just my knowledge. In the US, I've
Yeah.
traveled pretty much all the states, and that was, I only saw that in Alaska. And
Hmm.
then I came across you, and I'm like, this is a very interesting dude. Is he Alaskan?
Is he
No, but
Inuit?
I understand that you do not have an option for, I mean, you kill animals, you eat animals, you consume all that because you have no other option, or that is your main source of food and other things. But if you have an option where you may or may not kill animals to eat them, then is it fine? I mean, then is it the better option to eat meat, kill animals? Is that fine? If you have an option,
Well,
this is
I
your
think
view.
here's the thing about it. I think some people just focus on the kill of the animal, the hunt, right, itself. But I think once if you go hunting or you talk to other hunters, there's more to it, right? There's even more of a faith and fellowship, right? I feel more connected to my God and the world around me in the woods, in what I would say my natural element, my cathedral, my church, than I ever do in any structure that's ever been built, right? I go into the woods and I sit for hours in a variety of different, climates and temperatures and rains and everything else, right? And I just sit and I think and I ponder the world around me. And a lot of times I'll have something on my mind and I'm struggling to find some answer. And I get that clarity in the woods. Now, and I'm hunting, right? And I may see an animal or I may not see an animal. I may decide to shoot an animal, I may not, right? But there's so much more to just hunting and being in the woods than just the kill, right? There is a satisfaction to pitting yourself against climates, pitting yourself against um, the intelligence of other animals, right? I went to Maine this year and I hunted in Maine, and I've never hunted in Maine, never been to Maine. Well, I went to Maine once, but it was like I touched the border and then came down. I've never like went to Maine. So I went to Maine this year, and my goal in Maine was to see animals, to go up there and challenge myself to understand the topography, the geography, the animals, and challenge myself to overcome those obstacles and put myself in a position to where I saw animals, not necessarily killed them. And so, I mean, there's different aspects of hunting than just the killing. I say that's what I mean when I go through all that. That's what I mean, and that there's just a lot more to it than the killing. And yes, I do kill, and I do enjoy it. Right? I mean, I like drawing back my bow and challenging myself and knowing that I've put a lot of dedication and I've put a lot of um, practice into honing my skills to make sure that when I let loose an arrow, I mean, it's dead on, and I'm killing that animal in a humane as way as possible, right? But I do enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the hunt. I enjoy sharing that with my sons. And then at the end of the day, there is also a survival aspect. I mean, if shit hit the fan tomorrow right? How are you going to survive? Crops take time to grow.
Okay.
Right?
But
I mean,
don't animals do the thing? Don't they take time to grow? Animals?
no, but they're already grown and plentiful, right? So what I'm saying is like, sometimes you can't just go down the block and be like, oh, well, there's a garden already growing and here's some tomatoes and some beets and everything else, right? I mean, in an apocalyptic type situation, you just don't know what's going to happen. So why not be prepared?
Yeah. And so are you saying you're preparing your kids also for an apocalyptic situation?
Well, there's that, but there's also the natural aspect. You're preparing them to notice the little things. You're preparing them to have an appreciation for life. You're having to show them an appreciation for the world around them. The little things that people overlook every single day. You know, the feel of just a storm moving in, understanding how the world around us communicates to us in a variety of different ways, sitting in a tree and like watching the sun come up over, bare trees, or the smell that the air produces when you're in the middle of the forest here anyways, and in different places. But like when fall hits here and the leaves start turning, right? And you have like a cold sunny day, like you can smell the sugar from those trees and you can smell the sugar from those leaves that are changing colors. That's something that people that they take for granted. They don't get to actually witness and be a part of and really focus on. So hunting is a lot more than just the killing. And I'm raising my children because if you take that lesson on understanding the world around you and focusing on how things interact with one another, or taking situations that may happen in the woods, maybe your equipment breaks or you're trapped by a pack of wild dogs or something like that, you can apply those lessons to life in other aspects as well.
If you survive.
Well, I mean, not just survive, but like, just understanding the world around you better and being equipped to take the lessons that you learned in the woods and apply them to real life.
So you can be observant. You can learn to be ready to tackle things as they come on the spot. Yeah, I get that.
So a couple of questions there where you said taking in the environment, like, can you just not go there and just take in the environment without I'm just playing the devil's advocate.
No, yeah, no, perfectly. I mean, you definitely can. I mean, I've seen, so this season alone, I probably saw over 100 animals. And of that 100 animals, I probably could have harvested half of them, let's say 50, right? But at the end of the season, I took 3. So why those 3? I don't know. A variety of different reasons. My neighbors asked for some meat. I needed meat in my freezer, right? Variety of different reasons. So what I'm saying is, to your point, yes, you can go out into the woods and you can just appreciate the animals. You can watch the world around you. You don't necessarily have to shoot anything, but there are aspects of why you would shoot them, right? There is a satisfaction you get to putting all your hard work and effort and seeing it come to fruition. There's a satisfaction you get as a man, and this may be more of a Neanderthalic view, but there's a satisfaction you get for providing for your friends and family. Outside of a monetary, I work my ass off and I make a paycheck kind of thing. Like, I went out and I harvested this animal for my family. We're going to eat now, and it's the same appreciation a farmer has for growing crops. That's
what I was going to say. Then again, why can that not be substituted with farming? I mean, I'm not saying.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go down and track down the corn plant. Like it grows and it's sticking right there, You
can have your own farm is what I'm saying. Like, there's a whole lot of people who do that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of subsistent farmers out there. I mean, I got chickens in the back. I get my own eggs from my chickens,
Really?
Yeah. And ducks. I got two ducks and 9 chickens.
I'd like to visit your place.
So you can. I mean, but again, there's a different challenge. If you're farming, the plants are just growing and you're taking care of them and you're growing them and you're fighting off insects and you're watering them, right? And there are lessons to be learned there, and there's an appreciation to be gained there, and there's a pride to have for growing your own crops. But there's also different challenges. There are different learning experiences. There's a different pride factor. There's a different understanding when hunting.
Mm.
And it's not for everybody. I mean, I took my oldest out and we sat down and we saw animals. And I told him flat out, I said, this is not for everyone. Not everybody can pull a trigger or shoot an arrow and kill an animal. Killing is not something you take lightly. You are ending something's life. And you owe it to that animal to, if you are going to kill it, end it in the most humane way that you can possible, right? And honor that animal. And if you're not going to, don't pull the trigger. And I told him, I said, we'll come out here and we'll sit and we'll watch animals all day long because I just love being out here and I love spending time with him. And if he doesn't want to shoot one, we'll sit and watch him. No problem. No pressure. It's not for everybody. And a lot of times those people just become animal photographers.
And you also, we talked about this as well, right? You have tattoos of some animals that you feel are your spirit animals.
Yeah, of sorts. I've got
hater, you like them a lot, which is why you have tattooed them.
Well, yeah, and people always like they see the crow and they're like, oh, you got a bald eagle for America, you know, freedom. And I'm like, no, it's a crow. They are, right? So I have the crow. I love the crow. It's one of my favorite animals because they're so smart. They're so smart and they're so freaking crafty. Stupid ass birds. Love them. So the crow is very family oriented. The crow is very smart in the way it goes about it. Sends scouts out and communicates back. It's very family oriented, very intelligent. And you know, you read about it. There was actually one in the paper where some girl, she fed a crow and raised it, and she like would give it corn every day. And the crow came back after a while. The crow would come back after a while and start giving her trinkets that it found, like pebbles or coins, or I think she got a ring, like stupid little things that the crow was like, oh, I'm going to pay it back. Right.
Wow.
And it's funny. And then, so that happened. And then the crow started bringing crow friends, and the other crows started bringing payment for their food, for the corn. And so the girl has like a little collection of knickknacks and shit that the crows have brought her.
That's interesting. Crows have a barter system as well.
Wow.
I think all animals have an ability to understand on a deeper level. You look at even cats, right? I mean, cats show appreciation to their owner by killing and dropping a dead animal right on your porch. You're like, thank you for feeding me. I'm going to feed you. Here's a dead bird.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm saying you should have cats for apocalyptic situations.
No. Dogs, you feed me, I'm going to be here, and I'm going to understand and sense when you're upset. I'm going to understand when you need me, and I'm going to protect this house, right? Every animal has an ability to understand and empathize and know its kind of order in life. So I have the crow. I have the wolf, right? Because I can be somewhat of a lone wolf and, you know, just kind of off, but I also do enjoy being in a pack. I enjoy being with friends and family and being a part of something. I've got a bear, you know, just because, man, I would love to just die and become a bear one day. Like, that would be sweet. You're a big, fat, lazy bear eating blueberries on the side of a creek and soaking up the sun. No real worries, you know. Also, the bear in some native cultures symbolizes more of the shaman or teacher. And as you know, I was an educator and I was a teacher, so it has some deeper symbolism there. And then I have the trout. I have a trout. I love trout. I love fly fishing. And I love the trout. It's so wild. It's so free. And you have species, right? So here's one, the marble trout, right? So the marble trout is found in one river, one spot in the world. This trout exists in the Slovenia River, right? So you're talking about a part of the world that has been war torn, that it was bombed, polluted, destroyed, mucked up, whatever. And this trout survived. So just some of the freedom and survival that and tenacity that a trout symbolizes.
Why did it survive such circumstances? Do you know?
I don't know. Probably ate some bugs and bread.
Adapted.
I don't know exactly all the ins and outs on why it survived or how it survived, but it did. So that's why I have those animals there.
And bears don't really have any threat other than other bears, right? They're apex predators.
Yeah. Other bears and hunters.
Of course, human beings are a threat to everyone, but that's awesome. That's a great life to have, man. You're right.
You sit on the side of a river eating berries and getting fat. Yeah.
You already do that?
Yeah. The only time you interact with anything is to breed or knock around a dead animal. That's it.
Bears are pretty cool. I really like bears.
Yeah. They are a pretty cool animal. So yeah, that's hunting in a nutshell for me. There's some poor examples out there. There are people that just hunt to kill, I think there's a maturity, there's a mental mindset, there's an evolution of a hunter. And sometimes hunters don't always evolve out of that I'm just going to kill something mindset. They just don't. They're like people. People don't necessarily mature. Sometimes they reach a point where they tell themselves, I'm good. And they're really not, but they say, hey, I'm good. I've accepted this.
So what is the innate difference between a bad hunter and a good one? Like, is it where the place you're coming from, like why you're doing that, or is it something else?
That's tricky. So it's a tricky question, because you're asking me to say good or bad, right? I would say a bad hunter is a person who kills to kill, but then doesn't actually eat the animal, just kills it and leaves it.
It's just about refining your skills further, but you're not trying to, find a purpose for it, or you're just doing what you're doing better and better without the emotional, or rather without the, emotional maturity about it, why you're doing it, simply for the fun, for the adrenaline kick.
I don't want to maybe oversimplify it, but I would say a bad hunter is a person who kills without purpose.
Right.
Because I'll give you an example. A farmer, right, who is in Pennsylvania, for example, goes out to his field and hunts woodchucks and kills the woodchuck. And for all intents and purposes, has no intention on eating the woodchuck. Woodchuck does not taste good, right? But he kills the woodchuck. Is he a bad hunter? Is he a bad person? Huh?
No.
No? Why?
Bored.
Huh?
I think he's just a bored person. He's bored.
No, he's trying to.
But let me add another layer to it, right? So the farmer goes out and he shoots the woodchuck and he kills the woodchuck. Well, what we know about woodchuck is they dig holes, they dig little dens. And then if that farmer raises cattle, his cows, which he depends on for feeding his family and providing for his family, steps into a woodchuck hole, breaks its leg, and now he has to kill the cow. So that woodchuck is affecting his livelihood. His purpose for killing the woodchuck is not the same as his purpose for maybe killing a whitetail or a turkey, but it's still, in a lot of people's minds, a justifiable purpose. Right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think what separates a good hunter and a bad hunter is a bad hunter would be killing without purpose. And there's a variety of opinions on, what's a justifiable purpose,
So killing for sport, do you feel like that's killing for sport? Is that like maybe killing for
I
sport?
mean, when you say killing for sport, I'm assuming you're meaning you're
Not
killing to fuel your own dopamine and adrenaline. You're like, oh yeah, I killed a huge old deer, blah blah blah. I don't think that's ethical. I wouldn't necessarily say that makes a person a bad hunter. I would say that makes that person an immature hunter. But to each their own. I mean, it's perfectly legal and they're entitled to do so. And as long as they do so legally, they can. I mean, that's not my shtick, and I'm not going to judge them for it. That's not up to me. I would pray and hope and encourage them to find a deeper purpose and a deeper meaning, but they may or may not.
Ricky Gervais hates them.
That's fine.
Yeah. He feels very strongly about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things. If you look at hunting at a surface level and you're like, oh, you're just killing to kill, right? And you've made up your mind, you've compartmentalized it and saying a person kills just to kill, then yeah, I mean, it could look pretty bad just to murder an innocent animal, an animal that can't protect itself. But when you start peeling back the layer and you really start understanding some of the purpose and reasons and drive that, a hunter, that's in a hunter and the reason why they hunt, I think you start having a more mature understanding or acceptance. It doesn't mean you have to like it, right? You don't have to like people hunting. You don't have to like people killing, but you have an understanding.
Hey guys, so if you liked my video, please actually go ahead and like my video. Also show me support by subscribing to my channel because I'm working so hard for this. And hit that bell icon so that you're notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you.